A country thought birds were stealing food, so the plan was simple: kill the birds, save the grain, feed more people. On paper, it sounded logical. Tiny problem: the birds were not only eating grain, they were also eating what eats grain, and when the birds disappeared, the food chain did not say thank you, it broke. The strange part is the scale. This was not one farmer chasing one bird out of one field. This was a national campaign with millions of people, posters, orders, noise, and pressure behind it. And the bird was a sparrow, not an eagle, not a wolf, not some giant monster in the wheat field, a sparrow. But in China in 1958, sparrows became one of the official targets of the Four Pests Campaign. The other targets were rats, flies, and mosquitoes. Those made sense to people immediately, but sparrows, the accusation was simple: sparrows eat grain. And they do. They can eat seeds and grain, especially when food is available. So the logic became dangerously easy. Fewer sparrows means more grain. More grain means more food. More food means a stronger country. That is the kind of sentence that looks clean on a poster. The problem is that nature does not live on posters. In real life, a sparrow is not just a grain thief, it is also an insect hunter. And that second job matters, because insects can attack crops too. Locusts, rice borers, and other pests can damage the very fields humans were trying to protect. So the sparrow was not simply taking from the system, it was also holding part of it together. But once a government labels something as a pest, the word does something powerful. It flattens the creature. The sparrow is no longer a bird with a role. It becomes a problem with wings. So people went after them. They destroyed nests, broke eggs, killed chicks, and used slingshots, traps, and whatever tools they had. But the most famous method was almost cartoonishly strange. People banged pots and pans, shouted, waved flags, and climbed onto roofs. The goal was to keep the sparrows from landing, because birds need to rest. If you scare them every time they try to land, they keep flying until exhaustion does what the people could not do directly. Picture that for a second. A street full of people banging metal pans, children shouting, adults waving sticks, a tiny bird trying to land on a roof. Nope. On a tree. Nope. On a wall. Nope. The whole country turned into an airport where no sparrow could land. It sounds absurd, but it was real, and it was effective. Huge numbers of sparrows were killed. The exact totals from that period need caution, but the result is not really in doubt. The campaign removed sparrows from many places, and at first, that looked like success. Dead birds were countable. Destroyed nests were countable. A village could report results. A local official could say, "We did our part." That is where the trap opens. The campaign measured the easiest thing. Birds killed, good. Pests reduced, good. Grain saved, good. Except nobody had asked the system what it was about to do next, because the system had a second column, and that column was insects. With fewer sparrows eating them, crop-damaging insects had more room to survive. More eggs, more larvae, more mouths, more pressure on fields that were already under strain. The plan had removed a visible grain eater and an invisible crop protector. Sometimes the thing you hate is doing a job you never bothered to measure. A sparrow on grain looks guilty, a sparrow eating insects looks useful, but if you only stare at the stolen grain, you miss the protected harvest. And this did not happen in a peaceful moment. It happened during the Great Leap Forward, a massive political and economic campaign already putting extreme pressure on farming, reporting, food collection, and rural life. That matters. The Sparrow Campaign did not create the Great Famine by itself. This was a much larger catastrophe with multiple causes: forced policies, false production reports, state procurement, weather problems in some areas, and political pressure that made honest information dangerous. Millions of people died. So this is not a funny story about birds winning. It is a serious story about what happens when a simple idea becomes too powerful to question. Recent research has tried to measure the sparrow part of that disaster. Researchers compared places that were more suitable for sparrows with places that were less suitable, then looked at what happened after the campaign. Their conclusion was grim. Areas where sparrows had likely mattered more saw sharper drops in grain production after the birds were eradicated. And because food collection policies kept taking grain from local areas, those crop losses became even more dangerous. One recent estimate suggests the anti-sparrow campaign may have contributed to around 2 million excess deaths during the famine. That number is almost impossible to hold in your head, so do not turn it into trivia. The point is more uncomfortable. A small ecological mistake became deadly because it was attached to a huge political machine. A bird was labeled as a thief. The label became a campaign. The campaign became pressure. The pressure became silence. The silence became bad information. And bad information at national scale can become lethal. Nature does not need to argue with a policy. It just responds. If you remove a predator, prey can increase. If prey increases, plants can suffer. If plants suffer during a food crisis, people suffer. But when the campaign began, that chain was flattened into one childish equation. Bird eats grain, kill bird, save grain, done. That is the danger of a story that is too simple. It gives people permission to stop thinking, and once enough people stop thinking at the same time, a bad idea can move very fast. Scientists understood that sparrows also ate insects. Warnings existed. But under campaign politics, warnings can sound like disobedience. And when a system rewards agreement more than accuracy, truth has a very hard time getting through the door. Eventually, China reversed course. Sparrows were removed from the list of the four pests and replaced with bedbugs. But by then, the damage had already been done. Again, sparrows were not magical heroes. They did eat some grain. The mistake was not seeing that fact. The mistake was thinking it was the whole truth. That is why this story stays with people. It begins with something almost ridiculous, people banging pots at birds, and it ends with something almost unbearable. The country tried to protect food by killing the animals accused of stealing it, but the birds were also holding back another enemy, and once they were gone, the fields did not become safer. They became quieter, too quiet. No sparrows in the trees, more insects in the crops, more pressure on a country already being pushed towards disaster. So the plan was simple: kill the birds, save the grain. But the birds were not just taking from the system. They were working inside it. And when humans broke that small link, the damage did not stay small. It reached the fields, the harvest, and then the people. If you like this one, the next video is right here. Go watch that. And as always, let me know what you think down below. Thanks for watching, dummies. I'll see you in the next one.